over here.
Lord Raiden.
And we're here to cover Peterson Dunhill Flake, whatever you want to call it. Let's roll that beautiful leaf footage. All right. What we have here is Peterson Flake, also known as Dunhill Flake, or was formerly known as Dunhill Flake. I'm going to read from the description on the tobaccoreviews.com. So this is from the old Dunhill store catalog. It was flake, also known as light flake. This processed Virginia is a cut flake of medium strength, very cool, and has a pleasant, slightly sweet flavor. Let's see here. And aroma. That was from 1958. But in 1985, it also says lemon and bronze Virginia's ideal for sportsmen. So yeah, so it's a lemon and bronze Virginia. Normally, I think of like red and bright Virginia. It's sometimes we see words that I don't know if they're actually a different variation of, or if they're just a different word to mean the same thing. But regardless, we're going to go with what they're saying. This is lemon and bronze Virginias. You can see there's the darker leaf, and then there's some of the, what I would only assume is the lemon popping out. So yeah, and normally, it would come in a more uniform flake than this. This is just what I have on hand. This is broken up already. But yeah, this is Peterson Flake.
Well, that's a breakdown of that tobacco. So, Patrick, what do you think about this?
I've had a long history with Peterson Flake. It dates back to probably 2 years ago, where I just discovered that Virginias are my thing. I just started to. I got a tin of full Virginia Flake, and I just smoked right through that. It's crazy, and because I don't do that often, I normally a tin will last me a good long while.
Yeah.
Luckily now, usually when we buy stuff for this, we split it, and that kind of makes it not look so bad. But
it's also good when you spend so much money.
yeah. So I kind of went down that path of trying to find my everyday Virginia. Because I was going under the impression that probably one Virginia would be fine for me. Because like I said, most time 1 or 2 Englishes is fine for me. 1 vapor is fine. So I was like, well, 1 component, right? Virginia, 1 blend should be fine. So I smoked full Virginia. I smoked HH Pure Virginia from McBaron, Peterson. I was going to get around to a few others, but I just ended up being like, well, this Peterson's pretty good, right? And back then, the big reason why I went to Peterson was, it was a little bit more readily available than for Virginia Flake. It is an inferior blend. I even thought so then. But I did appreciate the brighter, grassier notes of Peterson Flake. However, upon returning to it now, I've had a couple bowls here and there, and and that's just the thing with Virginias. I think during that little stretch where I was traveling through the Virginias, I hardly ever had a bad. I don't know what the right word is. Kind of like the mixology or the variables in a Virginia. Because if you smoke a Virginia that's too dry, it's gonna burn hot. And it's really going to hurt you, or it does me. You've got to really get that moisture content just right, and you've got to make sure you ain't chiefing it either when it comes to Virginias, straight Virginias. And I think when I was going through my traveling of Virginias, I just got lucky. Every time I smoked a bowl, it was like the perfect moisture, and I sipped it, and everything was just wonderful every time. And upon returning to Peterson Flake, I've had a couple bowls where I was just huffing and puffing, and probably maybe it dried out a little bit too much, and so I've had some not so great experiences with Peterson Flake upon returning to it. But it's still, I think, a decent blend. It's got all the quintessential Virginia notes. I think it's a little bit lighter on the red because I don't get as much of that stewed fruit as I would in, like, say, full Virginia. I do get more of the grass, hay type situation. So I think it's a good blend, but it has gone further down. Like, so this video is releasing after Umberger Biermeister, and I would say that's a far superior blend to this. I think, like I said, Full Virginia is still better. Biermeister is better. I think I haven't had Pure Virginia in so long. I think Pure Virginia is probably a little bit better than this. So Peterson's kind of gone down in ranking for me. Even though it still has a pretty awesome, like, 10. Like, that's, going back to kind of what we were talking about with, like, Royal Yacht, right? They just have some cool tin art. Some of them are cool, some of them are kind of dumb. But this one's really interesting. The only, I guess, issue I have is that it's just called Flake. And, like, what? Flake what? I mean, it was Dunhill Flake, and you kind of knew that, but it's not Dunhill Flake anymore. It's technically Peterson Flake. And, I don't know. I like that it's simple, but then again, I'm kind of like, that's a little too simple. But that's regardless when it comes to the blend itself. But, I mean, like I said, I think it's a solid Virginia. It's just, there are better Virginias out there. So, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
I think that ultimately, if you were to never smoke another Virginia, this would suit you just well. Which means that at one point, I probably figured that this was a really good middle-of-the-road Virginia flake.
Yeah.
The problem with this flake is like you discussed, the more you investigate other straight Virginia flakes, the more you realize that this probably pales in comparison.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind it, but I do know that you're going to get more flavor and probably more enjoyment out of flakes that are superior. Like, I think Veermaster, has a little bit more, like, of the brighter, grassier notes that I like.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, it's more muted. While in Full Virginia Flake, the grassy notes are there, but there's some more of that sort of stewed fruitiness, or
Mm-hmm.
something about it being, like, matured.
Yeah.
Gives it, like, a little bit more, like a sweetness and a piquant kind of stewed fruitiness, that comes along with
It's
that.
darker. It's got a darker.
Right, and it just has like on approach, as you're kind of like leading towards the end of the bowl, Full Virginia sort of has a staying power. And so does, like, Hamburger Veermeister, or and this does too, but it's like take all those notes and turn them down a little bit, and then you have a muted aspect, but not in a so muted that it's like, well, what's the point? I think the one benefit to this, so let's talk some positives for a second, is that I do think you can puff on this harder than you could a regular Virginia. Now, there's some people out there who are lucky and they don't get, like, major tongue bite from Virginias.
Yeah.
I'm not that person. I usually steer clear of straight Virginias. I mean, I love them, but it's kind of like you sort of hurt yourself.
Yeah, risk versus reward.
Right. So it's like I'm not always smoking it, because usually I have to take some time off in between, like, Virginia flakes or just straight Virginias, because I get a pretty nasty side of tongue bite.
Mm-hmm.
I will pace how much of that I'm smoking. I think the one great thing about Virginia is that Virginia can be manipulated a little bit in terms of tongue bite once you add other blends to it, so that's kind of nice. But it stinks that I can't just always smoke, straight Virginia. I guess I'm a Weber guy now, which is kind of interesting because I've always
Virginia Burley? Yeah.
I get, it's interesting because I've never really liked Webers.
Really?
Yeah.
I like Weber's good.
But now I'm back on that. I'm on a Weber kick. We'll get into that at another time, but, like, I think that that's the downside to Peterson Flake, is that, if this is the only flake that you've ever smoked, and guess what? It's going to be the best. I mean, I guess that's kind of the way it is for all of them, but I mean, it's definitely good. It's definitely got some qualities that you want to smoke, especially if you're venturing into like singular tobaccos as opposed to blends, or you're just, kind of looking for something different. But the problem is like if you were to like this a lot, and then you were to go down the full Virginia flake route, or HH Pure Virginia, or Einberger Wehrmeister, blah blah blah, you're going to find that it's not quite as all-encompassing of a blend as the other ones are. And the other ones have a tendency too to pull out the things that you may like from this one and amplify it, which is also bad. So I can't say it's like a middle of the road for, like, say, bright Virginias, or middle of the road for red Virginias, or something where you have, when I say middle of the road, I mean like a mainstay, a pillar, if you will.
I was gonna say, is this a standard?
Could be.
I mean,
I think it wants to be a standard. I just think that, like, standard for Virginia would probably be pure Virginia, not full Virginia, not Einberger Wehrmeister, but pure Virginia flake. HH, which we'll need to do a comparison of. But, like, I think that probably will stick.
Yeah. I mean,
but once again, I'm just to kind of rally a little bit, so I'm not, like, just trashing it. I think all the tobaccos are good.
Yeah.
And I think the components are good. I just think, like, you could probably get more out of, another one of those blending houses that I was discussing.
Yeah. Well, I know you said something when we were talking about the subtleties of Wehrmeister, right? And, you were talking about, like, those subtle blends are, as you equated it, like, when a cake is actually really good and you don't have to sugar it up, right? And I think you might be able, it might not be a one-for-one, but I think you can kind of go with that same analogy and kind of talk about this being where it's muted in the fact, like, let's say Hamburger Wehrmeister is, the end-all, be-all, well, let's say Full Virginia. For Full Virginia is the best cake that's ever been made. It's not overly sweet. It relies on natural sweetness. It hasn't been sugared up. And then you're like, well, we want to make this for a diabetic. That's what this would be. It's all the ingredients are good. Everything's nice, but it's basically like they cut the sugar in half, or they use an artificial sweetener instead, right? Where we're not saying is, like, let's say they take the best cake ever made and they completely take all the sweetness out of it. That's not what this is. It's not like muted to the point where it's like just why even smoke it. It's more like they're using an alternative to sugar, kind of, but they're still not sweetening it up either. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the other direction, but still respectable in a certain way. So it's muted, but like you said, it's not like it's not worth your time. I would think it's a good entry point to Virginias. I still think I would lean to HH. By default, I would always probably lean to one of the HH blends. When you're trying to enter into a family, if you've never had a Burley or you've never had a Virginia or an English blend, I think you hardly ever can go wrong by going to McBaron. But I think this is a good substitute. I think if you want to kind of do like I did and want to travel and try a bunch of different kinds, then I don't think you can go wrong with this. But I doubt, everybody's got their own taste and everything, but I doubt that this is anybody's favorite Virginia.
Unless they love Virginia and they love to puff.
And that's, and so, that's definitely the case. That could be the case. I've never had.
Because I like Virginia and I like to puff, so this probably would be a mainstay Virginia.
But it's not because of the flavor.
But it's not because of it's not because I love it more than anything other than it's just like I got like a cheat code out of this, you know, where it's just like tongue bite, but I can get around it with a little Peterson Flake. Yeah.
So I mean, I would recommend it. Just on the caveat that you're not gonna get blown away by it. It is inferior to some of the blends we've spoken about.
I definitely agree with it. It's like this is a recommended blend that you're probably going to find out other blends are better than it, but I recommend it.
Yeah.
But for its own very specific reasons, its puffability, the sort of like the roundedness of the flavors. And by rounded, I mean like you're not in the red Virginia territory, you're not in bright Virginia territory. You're somewhere in the middle, but the it's muted a little bit, which makes it probably easier to puff on. I like it because but it's not it's still a contemplative blend. I wouldn't call this a get up and work blend either.
No, it's definitely not a 3 sales. You know, it's there's nuance here, you know, but
yeah, it's the weirdest blend because I'm sort of middle of the road on it, but it ain't bad.
Well, and if you've, I mean, I've been friends with Zach for a while now, and usually if something's middle of the road, that's pretty good for you, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, hardly ever is anything kind of you're indifferent on, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Either you love it or you hate it. And if you find something different on it, then it's like, well, it's not doing anything offensive, but it's not doing anything amazing either.
Yeah, it hasn't elevated itself, but it hasn't debased itself.
Yeah, exactly. So that makes sense to me. So yeah, so if you haven't had it, I'd recommend giving it a try.
Yeah, give it a go.
Now, I mean, if you like Virginias and you've already found pure Virginia or
HH Pure Virginia
HH
or Full Virginia Flake or Hamburger Biermeister or whatever.
It might
Peterson,
be a waste.
Peter Heinrich has, I think, a Pure Virginia.
It might be a waste of your time. Maybe. But I still wouldn't go out on a limb and say that's 100%. I'd just be wary that if you've had those better Virginias in the past, this isn't going to do much else for you. Like I said, unless you get the added benefit of being able to, maybe be able to chief on it and not have tongue bite and things like that. So
might be a good palate cleanse too.
Yeah.
Like if you smoked a lot of, if you've been really heavy with Latakia blends or like aromatic blends, this might be a good palate cleanse to get you back into another, a more simplistic world.
Yeah.
And maybe it is good because the mutedness maybe kind of gives you in this whole new perspective.
Yeah.
But then if you puff on it slow, maybe you can pick out little details, and then you can move into pure Virginia or full Virginia Flake. But as far as being a mainstay Virginia Flake, probably are better Virginias out there.
Yeah. So I mean, leave us a comment if you've had it, kind of your opinions on it if you want to. We always like to read those and hear what different people have to say. So, but we hope you enjoyed that. We'll have some more Virginias your way. But remember, Burley Boy Summer's coming. So get ready for it.
Burley Boy Summer.
See y'all.